Yeah, it's fine. If you give me your schedule ahead of time, I can always just try to do it.
No. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the No Name Cinema Society. Caught us in the middle there. I try to sneak in a quick conversation. This is our classic movie discussion. It's time. Our most popular segment of the evening, which is kind of exciting. And we're a little late, but I need to keep forgetting. I need to keep reminding myself that it doesn't really matter. Like, the live element is just a bonus. Like, more people watch this on YouTube later than they watch it live. So if we're late, I need to not worry. Isn't that right, guys?
That's right. Don't worry, be happy.
So first, let me do my introductions here. Who gets introduced first? There's 24 characters in Nashville, but only 3 of us. You've already met me. I'm Jonathan Betzler. I don't have my lower third because nothing's working tonight. But regardless, let me introduce you to Jay Money. I think I introduced you. Oh, you don't have the right lower third up.
I don't.
You don't have your name, but he's Jay Money. But that's okay.
This helps explain what we're doing.
Davey Joe, how are you? You're the only one doing anything right tonight.
All nights, man. All nights.
You're the glue that keeps us all together, as it were.
There you go. There you go.
So we're talking about Nashville, everybody, and let's go through the evening schedule real quick, if Jay Money has a moment to pull that up, so that you can see what we've already talked about. We've been struggling all night with some technical difficulties, but just getting back on track here, and I think maybe we can finish this on time. We have about 40 minutes until 10 o'clock Eastern. So how are we doing, Jay Money, on the graphic?
It's been up for like the last 20 seconds.
Yeah, it doesn't always come up. It doesn't appear to come up right away. Anyway, so there you can see what we've done so far. So 8 o'clock we had Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. 8:30 we had what Davey thought was a pretty good discussion of the off hours. Do you want to elaborate on that, Davey?
I thought I was good.
Okay. Well, that's a first. Now we're about to talk about Nashville from 1975, and we got the sound off coming off, and depending on how this goes, we're supposed to have my top 5 fantasy films of all time. Davey has a diatribe, and I've got a second run discussion. We've also got some last minute Twitter questions from some of you that maybe I'll have time to discuss with these guys, depending on how it goes. It all depends on how we do over the next 40 minutes or so. All right, so time for trivia. So on the broadcast, I said, I hinted that the next movie the next classic was gonna be a 3+ hour movie with 24 protagonists, Nashville. And the Facebook question was that 2 of the 5 supporting actress Oscar nominations in 1975 came from this movie, and both of them were beat by someone that we discussed in episode 17.3, which you guys now know is. There it is. He's awake, ladies and gentlemen. Shampoo. Lee Grant won Shampoo, and do you guys know who from Nashville was nominated?
No.
The singer that went crazy. I can't remember her name. Right? She was nominated.
Renee Blakely as Barbara Jean. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other guesses for the other one?
Should have been Jeff Goldblum, but it wasn't.
Davey, any guess as to who else was nominated?
No.
Do you care?
I care. Of course I care.
Lily Tomlin got the other Oscar nomination.
That's nice.
What's that?
That's nice. She deserves it.
Interestingly enough, in the Golden Globes, Nashville had 4 supporting actress nominations, 4 of the 6, and also none of them won. But neither did Lee Grant. Actually, Brenda Vaccaro won the Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actress that year for Jacqueline Suzanne's "Once Is Not Enough." Strange. See if I have a little tidbit thing. This would be the perfect time to use it. Can we bring up Walker Party, sir? Photo-wise. What's that?
The vote is what happened there.
What's that, Davey?
They split the vote. The people who the Nashville people, their vote was split, so they didn't win anything.
That's certainly a theory. Let's see. There's the photo. All right, cool. So two major events are at the heart of this biting satire. The return of ailing star Barbara Jean and an all-star benefit for political candidate Hal Philip Walker. Both events that take place over a 5-day period draw fictional country music stars and fans from all over to this unique Tennessee city to either achieve success or hold on to it. How do you guys feel about that summary?
Yeah, that covers it.
Yeah, that's good.
It explains
I do
absolutely.
like it when you guys like my summaries. I feel better about the whole. I feel better about my life, quite frankly. But regardless, so I had a screening of this film, and I have to say it was one of our most complex post-screening conversations that we've ever had. And the fact that we've got there's a lot to unpack here, and the fact we've got to do it in a shorter time period because of our technical difficulties is stressful. But our conversation on Nashville alone, because I recorded it, and I might play you some snippets as we go along, we had a 2-hour talk back afterwards, and that's like the longest I think we've ever done at our classic movie screenings. And this was in Los Angeles, and it was a full year ago. It was November 7th that we screened it. So it was, I didn't rewatch it for this. So this is probably the longest in between the screening and the broadcast with you guys. So I'm going to let you guys go do your thoughts before I give the screening thoughts. Davey Joe.
This movie was kind of a roller coaster for me. I really wasn't feeling it for the first hour and a half. But then there were some pretty powerful moments.
Powerful moments. Okay, J Money.
I loved it. Top shelf Altman, as far as I'm concerned.
Top shelf Altman. For the screening on last November, I would say that there was admiration, but not necessarily love. I mean, I think each of the patrons had a scene or two that they pointed to as outstanding, but none of them really loved the whole thing, it seems. And I think that the things that dominated the 2-hour conversation were the style of the film, the performances, and the themes. They were the main things that we sort of covered. And so maybe those are the things that we'll cover here as well. In terms of my personal feelings, I feel like Altman's cynical detachment to his subject in a lot of his films leads to a lack of emotional engagement, and I think that's where what the audience was feeling. I think it's an extremely impressive, thought-provoking, challenging movie, but I can agree with them that it is hard to love. I want to start with direction. I've got so many things here. Well, you know what? Let me start with the detachment, and let me see if I can play a clip for you guys, and we'll see how it sounds. It was one of the last things I was going to talk about, but since it just came up, I'll see if I can find this moment here. So hold on. Let me see if I can find this. So, okay. Stand by. Here we go. Oh, shit.
Standing by.
Yeah.
Way to not being forced to strip, so, yeah. For me, there's also so much contrast that it's going out of its way to not lead you to feel a particular way. It's allowing you to make up your own mind about the situations of your own.
Because they're so detached.
They're so detached, but there's also so much contrast between.
So that was the positive side of the detachment, but here's what someone else said, and I wanted to play them both as a sort of like, see both sides of the coin type scenario.
Parts were enjoyable, but on the whole, yes, it was slow, and the music is its thing, and I just felt like almost like I was chasing a butterfly who was just out of reach, where I was like, I want to kind of really lock into this movie, but it was just too far removed.
So I thought, did you guys were you able to hear those?
Kinda.
Yeah.
I really love that chasing the butterfly comment, because I thought that was a really interesting metaphor for how they felt about the movie. So obviously J Money probably agrees with the first one more. Davey, do you agree with the second one more?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a fantastic analogy.
Cool.
I want to, if you don't mind, I'd like to go back to this idea of attachment because I honestly don't think I understand what that means in this situation.
Well, I mean, I think the first quote sort of suggested it. Like as a filmmaker, he's stepping back, and it can be seen as a very positive thing, and it's certainly within his style. He's stepping back, and he really doesn't tell you how to feel one way or the other about anything. You sort of just feel what you feel, and different people feel differently. And it can be seen as a very positive thing, but sometimes the net result is you don't feel anything because there's no directorial manipulation, and that's potentially a very positive thing. But sometimes without that emotional engagement, you're not rooting for anything in particular.
Do you feel like that's Altman-esque in general, or do you feel like it's just him doing it in this film?
I think it is Altman-esque in general. Yeah,
okay.
There's some exceptions certainly, but I think I've often talked about Shortcuts being one of my top 3 favorite films of the '90s. I think it's the same thing, but that resonated a lot more with me. But I think that it has a very similar approach. We're not really overstepping the bounds. I feel like there's a lot more. It was a lot more. Shortcuts was a lot more controlled. Like there's this loose feeling to Nashville, which is impressive, but also uncomfortable, I guess. And I really like Nashville. I'm not saying that I don't want to, but I mean, this is our job on this show is to maybe dig in a little deeper here because obviously it's a famous film and whatever.
Yeah. I guess I'm surprised to hear that people feel like it was so detached. I guess I didn't feel that way.
Okay, who did you care about? What did you root for?
Well, I care about almost all the characters because I think you're diving into the characters' lives in a way that makes them so much more personal to begin with, regardless of whether or not they're flawed. I mean, but let me just step back from that for a second because I guess what I would say is because the tone of this movie was so satirical to begin with, that to me is an emotional connection. I don't feel like that's a detachment. Like you're saying, he didn't necessarily tell you how to feel about these characters, and I guess on an individual level that's true. But if you know that you're within this context of satire, then I feel like you are being told in a certain way how to care about these characters.
How do you figure? I don't understand. And at some point, don't pull it up yet, but Keith and Lily would be the next photo. I don't know what you mean.
Well, I guess I mean that if you recognize the idea that this movie is a satire, and that's the context for kind of reading everything that's happening through it, then I think it does set up a way to translate these characters, and how you're going to feel about them. Because that that you take a certain amount of stuff with a grain of salt, I think, because of their satire. That you don't necessarily take a lot of emotional content as seriously because it's satire. I guess I feel like there was, if the whole thing is like we're talking about this big joke in a sense, then it's like you're being in on the joke with Altman. Like you're being in on the process.
I mean, I think satire goes beyond being a joke. I think you probably feel the same way. But, Davey, what do you think about all that?
As a satire, I don't know. It doesn't do much for me. I get it. There's a lot of. It's definitely mocking a lot of different ideas, celebrity and politics and things like that. But I don't. To me, that's kind of a miss. This movie works to me only on a very micro level, but when it does, it really works very well.
Okay. So J Money, I guess I don't understand what the connection is between this comment about satire and automatically feeling an emotional engagement. If I can regurgitate what you're saying, it sounds like what you're saying is, so he's winking at us, so we're engaged in that level, but not with the. So we're almost on the side of the filmmakers, and that we're all sort of stepping back and judging these people, as opposed to living with them and feeling with them and rooting for them. Is that what you mean?
Not exactly, but sort of. I guess what I mean is they're presenting. Altman and everybody is presenting this context to understand the characters. And I think what we were saying at the beginning of this conversation was you guys were saying that there was no attachment from his point of view to these characters.
I was saying, yeah, there's a detachment. That's common in his whole milieu, but...
Sure,
yeah.
Exactly. Well, he puts it out there, and then you're up to you to make your decisions about it. But I think that also... if you're saying like one of the things you were saying is like you don't necessarily know how you're supposed to feel about these characters. I think that there is this base understanding within what he's presenting as a context of satire that does help inform you how to feel about these characters.
To judge them.
Well, judge sounds hard because I don't think it's about. Well, because it's not like you're necessarily saying this is an awful person versus a good person or something like that. It's more like you understand.
Except it almost suggests that these are all silly people in a silly society.
Yeah, kind of. I guess that's a fair way of putting it.
Okay. How do you? So a couple of other directorial things I wanted to talk about, and it sounds like I'm going to talk about the pace again. It sounds like David Joe, you were not a fan of the pace.
No, I was definitely not a fan of the pace. It would have been fine if I could latch on to anything, for the first 90 minutes.
I mean, this is sounding very similar to how this audience reacted to it. J Money, it sounds like you thought the pace was appropriate, given the 24 characters.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I feel like I not that I know what I was in for, but like it doesn't, the pace is what I would expect for him, for an Altman film, just in general. And I guess I feel like if you know that you're going to settle into these kind of like loose conversations of different people, then you just settle in. Basically, you just sit tight and you hang on to the ride and see how it goes. The pace of it didn't bother me for that reason. I understand why the pace would be tiring for others. Certainly.
Let's pull up the Keith and Lily photo now, if we could,
Yep.
and let's talk about the improv element of it. That's very common in this film, and also the Altman's milieu in general, but very specifically this film. Does it hurt or help the film? This idea of like, not only are the actors improving to some degree, but the camera is as well.
It didn't hurt it for me. That might have helped slow it down for Davy Joe.
It hurt bad, man.
Okay, why?
The movie lacked focus, and when you have it in your head that this just isn't going anywhere, and you would like to figure out where we're headed, it's irritating.
Wow. If only we had the Davy scale to pull up here. I'd really like to see where we land on the Davy scale. Do you have those somewhere, J Money?
Yep, I'm going to pull something up here.
Let's talk about some of the devices that he used, and let's see if any of them work for you guys. Within the context of the film, like some devices to sort of advance the satire or satirical elements. The political van, the Goldblum trike, if you will.
Yeah.
The BBC reporter, and the music itself. There was a lot of discussion of those elements. Do you guys, did any of those work more than others? And for this, you can pull up I'm Easy if we're going to talk about the music at all.
Well, first, I just want to cycle back to Davy Joe for a second. Davy Joe, this movie was something that you thought was hard to get through, you were saying?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that the first 90 minutes are a chore.
Would you say that they are brutal?
Yeah, I'd say.
There you go, Davy Joe! Davy's ability.
Not the whole. I would not. I don't. The movie's not all bad, but the first 90 minutes are.
Wow,
almost.
a classic from 1975, and Davy's down on it. And it's not even a musical. Well, I guess it is a musical of sorts in its own way.
The music is.
Did you want me to pull up the BBC? Is that what you were saying?
Sure, pull up BBC on the spot. What do you guys think about some of these devices that were used to sort of like, have allegorical impact, if you will?
I mean, I was totally cool with it. I really liked and noticed the use of vehicles in general because I felt like they were a lot of times proxies. Sorry, I was going to say oxymorons. Proxies for characters and proxies for certain things that were happening around the plot in general. And I really thought that was actually a pretty cool device. I mean, especially the fact that the van becomes a character, a constant, basically voiceover element that I'm surprised that you were.
I mean, except it's not telling us what's going on in the action. It's sort of like this outside commentary that is effective in its own way. David Joe, what about these sort of recurring symbols, if you will?
I will say that the one shot that I thought was pretty awesome was when she's in the junkyard and she's
with the buses.
Yeah, I mean that was pretty great. I mean, like, this movie definitely has stuff. Like, I mean, it's not horrible.
Let's jump ahead. I'm going to skip performances and I'm going to jump ahead to the themes. Let's pull up Duet, if you will. J Money, the photo called Duet. And the theme that seems to have landed the most that J Money brought up was the celebrity / fame, the theme sort of satirizing celebrity / fame. What do you think this film is saying about that?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Come on, guys. Work with me here.
No, what do you go more specific? JB, go more specific. What is it that you actually want to address within this idea?
I'm saying, like, what this, like Davey mentioned, like, I feel like there's a handful of themes, and Davey mentioned that celebrity, it's skewing celebrity and fame, and I guess what did he derive from it? Like, what was his conclusion after watching this movie as regards celebrity and fame?
What did he derive from skill? I mean, I think that we're talking about the way that the people are falling over themselves for celebrity and fame, but this is really about famous people. It's really about the celebrities from their point of view. So I'm not sure that I felt like there was something.
They're certainly famous within the world in which they exist. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I think but they're also lonely. It's you can be, a celebrity and have all these people that love you, but at the end of the day, he's on the phone trying to get someone to come visit him. That's kind of.
Who's on the phone? Who's on the phone trying? Oh, you talking about the Keith Carradine character?
Yeah, and right after Lily Tomlin checks out of the room, he's trying to get someone else to come see him. Like, he's lonely. Like, before he was on the phone trying to get her to come over, and he's this celebrity who's got all these people that follow him, et cetera, et cetera.
So yeah, even the famous people are not happy, but yet they want fame so much, and also the fleeting nature of fame, like the double-edged sword that it is. Like in the rivalry between Barbara Jean and the Susan Black character, like the rivalry, if you will, and the way that sort of Haven sort of gloms on to Barbara Jean when she's famous and popular, and the way he behaves at certain times too. I mean, I think it's showing the darker side of celebrity fame, and also like utilizing these cameos, like from Altman films past, like Elliot Gould and Julie Christie showing up as themselves, to sort of, I think one of the more telling scenes is when Ned Beatty doesn't know who Elliot Gould is. Do you remember that? That scene?
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting. And then on the flip side, you've got the Gwen Wells character, and who's so desperate trying to become that. So it's, like, I think one of the more effective elements of it is how it sort of shows both sides of that situation. But it, you brought it up, Davey, but it doesn't necessarily seem to make you felt one way or another about it.
No, I mean that was definitely the scene that I talked about where right after Lee Tomlin leaves. I thought that was really, really effective, and that was, I think, around the time when I thought the movie started to turn and I started to find something to hold on to.
I think a lot of it's about the hollowness of quote unquote fame. You know what I mean? Like it's not really tangible, and it's not, it's not something. It's not this real thing that, and it's so important to everybody, but it's so amorphous as well.
And also what people are willing to do to themselves to achieve it. I think that the striptease scene is one of the most heartbreaking scenes I've ever seen in a movie.
Wow.
It really, I mean,
you really are split on this movie.
No, I'm telling you, it's. I was just like dumbfounded. I
But
felt
I mean,
that.
but that's you every day. What are you talking about?
Yeah, well, fair, fair. But
J Money,
you know,
any other themes that you could think of?
Well, it's funny that you're talking about like the idea of fame. I mean, to me, I get everything you're saying, but it wasn't necessarily. I think that fame is a vehicle to talk about like sort of American exceptionalism and the idea of the American dream in general. And then we're watching.
There it is. That's the word I was looking for. The phrase.
Because I mean, we're watching all these different celebrities that are at different phases in their career of fame, basically. But it's not necessarily so much about fame as much as the desire to grow something. And I think that since it's so Americana based, it's hard to divorce the idea of what it means to excel in America in a sense, for pulling yourself up for your bootstraps and being like rich and famous and successful. And I think because he brought in the British reporter, he's sort of like turning that idea on its head because he's trying to use her as a counterpoint in a comical way to talk about our own, in a sense, bloated decay, because it's the 70s, right? I mean, like everything is kind of falling apart. So.
Well, it's also sad how relevant some of it is.
Yeah,
some of it still is today. That's sort of
from modern day in a lot of ways.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I mean, the American dream. I think the American dream is the most important theme to me, and some would say the death of the American dream.
Sure.
And I think like the ending, the death and resurrection of the American dream, in a way, like. Because I think the ending suggests that the American dream will keep on going, but are we dreaming the right dreams in terms of the Barbara Harris character? And should I give stuff away, or I mean, like it's
an old enough film. I mean,
yeah. In the way that the film almost traded Barbara Jean for the Barbara Harris character, who rises from the ashes in this moment of absolute horror. I think that's sort of like the death of Barbara Jean is like the death of the American dream, but then it rises again in this very hollow way, like in a way that's like, why is this happening? And if you listen to the lyrics of that song, written by, and the other weird thing about the music of this movie is they were written by the actors themselves, incidentally, each of these songs. But I think that particular song was written by Chris Christopherson, maybe. But the final song, I think some of the lyrics are, "You may say I ain't free, but that's okay with me," or something like that. And it's like, they're singing it happily, but I'm like, wait a minute, what? Like, what are you saying about not being free? Come back. So I think that's really very telling. And so, yeah, to me, it is about the American dream.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, we're probably going to unpack this a little bit more, but that final scene brings in so many different wonderful elements in terms of the symbology of America. I mean, it's happening on this. It's happening. By the way, I was just in Nashville a few weeks ago, so this was great watching this film. About 2 weeks after I got back from Nashville, because I was like, oh, I saw that. The Parthenon that's in Nashville.
You go to the Parthenon? You went to the Parthenon?
I was actually literally where they were shooting that one scene, but. It's an exact one-to-one replica of the actual Parthenon that they built in a park in Nashville. And
who does that though? Like what city? Why would you do that?
Well, it was for the World's Fair. It was for the World's Fair back in the early 1900s. But yeah, it's a little crazy just in and of itself. But so you have this wonderful recreation of basically democracy, right? It's something that actually represents in a lot of ways kind of classic symbology of America. In a sense, because it represents, our capital, it represents what the pillars of stuff, it represents justice, it represents all these sort of like classic themes. And they chose to put it in the middle of a heartland, which is fantastic. And then we had a ritual sacrifice of a virgin in white. I mean, there are all these things that just kind of came together that was so perfect, in a wonderful way.
Well, that's a good segue to talk about, because one of our more interesting discussions, because nobody loved the movie, but everybody had a scene that they loved. And so I wanted to ask you guys what your favorite scenes were, and then I'll tell you how those guys responded in terms of their favorite scenes. So who gets to go first? Davey, since you liked it less. You talking about the Keith Carradine on the phone? Is that your favorite?
I think that the most effective scene was the striptease scene. It's just
striptease. That was one of the scenes. Do you have a photo for it? Special performance. I do. Do you have special performance?
Yeah, and I'll find it.
That was one of the scenes that the audience brought up. That was that was listed as theirs. I mean, like it came up second. And yeah, it was you know, like it's something that you saw coming, but not as intensely as this. And I mean, it's one of the scenes that I think works because of the detachment. You know what I mean? Like, it feels colder because he's not really siding with Gwen Wells. You know what I mean? Like, he's not really like getting close-ups of her. You're just like sort of a fly on the wall, so it's even more uncomfortable. So yeah, striptease is one of the ones that the audience mentioned. J Money?
I'm going to go for a scene that's actually kind of heavy-handed. The traffic jam scene.
That was the audience. And there's a photo for that too if you want to pull that one up.
Let me pull that one up.
That was the audience's #1 favorite scene.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
So yeah, fun little story. Do you guys know anything about trivia tidbit? A little bit about how this movie came to how this movie happened?
No.
So there was a whole other movie that Robert Altman was asked to make, and it took place in Nashville. So he went to Nashville to scout, and he decided he didn't want to do the movie. But the writer, he said, "You stay here for a year and just make some notes and let me know. It's an interesting city. I'm curious to see what you find."
Yeah.
So this writer, Joan Tewksbury, she stayed in Nashville for a year and just like wrote a bunch of notes of things that she saw and witnessed. And then there was no script to Nashville. There was just her notes. Like, she just like recounted various scenes. So this is a true story. This traffic jam really happened. In just the way it is, with the boat falling off the thing. And so that's exactly how it happened. And then they had a cookout afterward. Like, it's a true story. Really happened. And it's one of those like so crazy, too crazy to be true type things. And it was true. And so yeah, that was the scene that the audience really, really thought was really awesome in its own way. And it's early in the film too. So J Money, it sounds like Davey wasn't into it by then.
No, Davey Joe wasn't really feeling it until the strip scene. That's when it really spoke to him, apparently. You know.
He's got no comments. He's just gonna smile wryly. It feels so weird not to be able to pull up pictures myself, I have to say. So the audience had a couple other scenes that they mentioned. And while you're doing that, will you pull up Renee on Edge photo, J Money?
Yep.
And both of their favorite scenes had to do with Gwen Wells, actually, from the strip scene. They really liked the scene right after the strip scene where her cook friend, basically stops her on the steps of her apartment and gives it to her straight. They really like that scene. And they also do the open mic, early in the film before we even see the striptease.
Right.
They really like that scene a lot too. My favorite scene is this one here. This is the Barbara Jean breakdown. She's on stage and in the middle of her performance. And this is why I think she got her Oscar nomination. And this is the one scene that really had an emotional impact on me. Like, out of nowhere, like I felt really impacted by this. And in the middle of her performance and singing, she starts to lose it a little bit and has to be taken off stage. And it's performed well and very, very effective. And Davey Joe, anything on that scene?
No, it's a great scene. I mean, and I thought that her husband was great also in that scene.
Yes. Okay. Cool. So I mean, is it possible, Davey Joe? And we're running out of time again because it's what we do. But is it possible that and get ready for the classic movie showdown, J Money? Is it possible, Davey Joe, that you the scenes all the scenes that you liked or towards the end of the movie, would they have even been possible without the setup from the first part of the movie?
I tried to work that out, and I would almost have to watch it again to hash that out, and I don't want to. I feel like you could still maybe I feel like it could be at maybe 45 minutes instead of 90.
I would say that the one person in our screening that had seen it before said he liked it so much better the second time. He felt like it flew to him pace wise watching it the second time. And I thought that was really interesting point of view.
I could see that too.
All right, show me the classic movie showdown. There it is. It's time. Get the rules ready.
That might be more complicated.
Will it?
It's possible. Let me see if I can find those.
I mean, you've got them somewhere. You made them.
Here they are. You're right.
Nice. Go straight to the rules, and Davey, you get your glasses on.
Okay.
So it's time for the classic movie showdown. 2 movies that are going to be pitted against each other, and Davey's going to explain it to you.
All right, what we got? Oh, I gotta pull that up. Okay. So the seating varies from bracket to bracket. The films are screened at JV-hosted screenings, and they need to be 15 years or older. Voters are eligible to vote if they see both films within a 12-month period. Voters must see both films in JV's presence. JV is ineligible to vote. Unless the vote counts, he can break ties.
Break ties. I don't know, J Money. What do you think? I think that was his best reading so far.
So far. But, there's still plenty of time ahead of us. We've got years for
He
this.
can improve. There's room for improvement for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah. Now the fun part about Nashville is we have what we call a doble. We had 2 brackets to attack that evening, November 7th in 2015. It was. So let's start with the 70s bracket, shall we, J Money?
Bam.
Boom. There it is. Nashville, a 9 seed against number 8 seed. Now, we talked about the Last Picture Show. I think it was episode 7 that we talked about Last Picture Show. Is that right? Yeah, it must have been.
Episode 7? That sounds like a long time ago.
It was a long time ago that we talked about it, but we talked about Last Picture Show in episode 7. The other film that we talked about, the other film we talked about episode was Child 44, I believe.
Oh, yeah, that was a while ago. Holy shit.
So it was like in April. Was it Child 44? I could be wrong about that. It was Chappie. I'm going to go with Child 44 for now. So it would have been like April 2015 that we talked about.
Chappie. I forgot about Chappie until you just mentioned it. Oh, God.
So if you watch that show, then you know that Last Picture Show is my 9th favorite film of all time. So J Money, I have to think this is a tough vote for you.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be, for me, it's going to be The Last Picture Show. I still think it's, between the 2 of them, if I had to pick one on a rainy day, I would probably go Last Picture Show first. Yeah, I really like Nashville quite a lot. Obviously, I think I made that clear, but Last Picture Show is just there's just more to it for me.
And you're going to say Upstream Color is better, though?
If we're going to talk about a top 10 in terms of my personal love of cinema, yeah, I'm going to go for Upstream Color.
Wow, because Last Picture Show, every time I watch it.
Fantastic, yeah. Last Picture Show is probably in my top 10 as well. I don't know where things place, but...
I mean, the audience is suddenly curious about your top 10, but maybe you'll unravel it as our decades of the show go on.
I keep adding to it. I don't really... My top 10 is 100 films long.
I'm the same way.
Davy Joe.
Oh, yeah, Last Picture Show. Done.
Do you want to expand at all? Anything else?
No, it's Ben Johnson, right? I mean, it's everything. Top to bottom, better performances, better story. It's, I think, a much more beautifully shot film. There aren't a lot of movies that are better than The Last Picture Show. So,
wow. But it's only a number 8 seed. Is it seeded too low?
Well, the one thing that I'd say about The Last Picture Show is it's definitely the story itself is not that big a deal. But it's everything else about the film is so great. The performances and the beauty of it.
It's a great book. It's a great book. Wow, Larry McMurtry. So it's time to reveal the winner, J Money.
Boom.
Boom. Just like that. That's how it's done. It was, and this was a unanimous decision as well in the audience screening as well. They all had a real strong affection for The Last Picture Show. There was one guy who didn't like The Last Picture Show at the screening.
Is he not even human?
Hey, man, I like it though. That's the guy you want around, man. I want to hear what that guy has to say.
But then he was like, as much as I like Nashville, he said at the screening that The Last Picture Show really grew on him in the months after the screening. So,
all right, he's human.
So anyway, yeah, last picture show was an easy victory, and like an 8-9 matchup, like it's supposed to be hard. I thought it was going to be a lot harder. I actually was worried last picture show was going to fall, but it survived and moved on, and it has to take on a number 1 seed probably in the next round. So we'll see how that goes. Let's move on to our next bracket, which is the AFI bracket, which is a bracket of the American Film Institute's top 64 films. You know, we split them up, and you know, they're pre-ranked for us, and then we made a bracket from that. And so in that bracket, Nashville's a 15 seed going up against a biggie, number 2 seed, Gone with the Wind, the most profitable movie of all time. And possibly one of the most famous movies of all time. So, but Gone with the Wind's old, so you know it's not necessarily a gimme in this matchup. And there's been a lot of 2 seeds that have gone down in the first round across all brackets. Davey, you get to vote first here. Did you watch? Did you watch Gone with the Wind for tonight's show?
Oh God, no. I've seen it, but I'm never watching.
You were supposed to rewatch it for tonight's show.
Yeah, no. That's not happening. Nashville 1,000 times over Nashville. I'm so done with Gone with the Wind. Blah.
Okay. 1,000 times Nashville, and you didn't like Nashville that much, but what's the issue with Gone with the Wind?
I don't like it at all. I don't like it at all. To me it's unwatchable. Everything performances are hammy. I find that the music that everyone talks about being so great, I find it obnoxious as well. The depiction of slavery is insulting and disgusting and horrible. It's just a movie that I revile. Absolutely.
You know the movie is from 1939, right?
I don't care. It's
about 15, at least 15, maybe 20 years ahead of its time in many ways.
Sure. You know, in the sense that it's not a total. It's not a completely apologistic film, but I can't do it. I don't.
You also know that Hattie McDaniel won an Oscar, so she.
Oh sure. I know. I know that it's you know, a highly regarded film, one of the greatest of all times by a lot of people's account. But I can't do it, man. I can't do it.
J Money.
So I watched Gone with the Wind for the first time for this match.
Holy cow!
Yeah.
Oh man, that is going to be something. It's 4 hours long.
It is 4 hours long. I watched all 4 hours of it. And I will say that, honestly, there was never a point – well, that's not entirely true. For a 4-hour movie, and we've seen a lot of 4-hour movies lately, maybe.
I did give us a month, though. Like, we had 40 days off.
Exactly. So, you know, I felt like I had the time to do it. And honestly, I should have seen this movie. You know, it's famous and infamous, by the way. So it's something I needed to have in my repertoire in some sense. In a lot of ways, I'm still processing it. Right? It's a pretty fucked up movie, and it's very weird.
Language,
the fucking language. They think that people can deal with it in Trump's America at this point. We can say whatever we want. It's a weird movie.
Don't propagate that.
It's a weird movie, and I don't really entirely know what to make of it. I certainly don't feel like it deserves a number 2 seed.
Well, that's the AFI. That's the AFI.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of amazing technical things going on, and in a sense, I will disagree with David Joe about a lot of the performances and about like the music and stuff like that. It's a highly offensive movie from a performance point of view, and there's really no way to kind of excuse the way that it showcases a lot of stuff that's very, very questionable.
Well, I mean, and we have another film coming down the pike and late next year, I think that will, you know, we'll have to re-ask these questions again. But you know, there is a certain issue of the filmmakers not knowing better at a certain time.
Well, but you know what? In 39, I don't think in 39 it's an excuse. I think my bigger issue with Gone with the Wind is that I'm really not sure who it was made for at the end of the day, because this is a movie that lacks any kind of protagonist. It's a movie that's about flawed characters, and it celebrates flawed characters. And
I think the very best protagonists are flawed, historically speaking. I mean, in terms of literature, my high school English teacher used to say that the 3 most interesting female characters in history were Charlotte from the Golden Bowl, Sally Bowles from I Am a Camera, and and Cabaret as we know it, and Scarlett O'Hara. I mean, Scarlett is one of the most complex heroines in history.
Yeah, you know what? I don't disagree with the sentiment on a whole, but the fact that the movie kind of celebrates them in a way that makes me uncomfortable, that's where I kind of question how they were handled, and also who...
You don't think the movie sort of judges Scarlett from time to time?
From time to time, yes. Does it come out on a whole positive? I think so. I think on a whole it ends up celebrating Scarlett, and that's a little bit out there. Also, even more...
But I mean, Scarlett, also, in fairness to Scarlett, she had a strength and a tenacity that... For as far as at a time pre-women's suffrage and things like that, she was, blazing a certain kind of a trail. Her methods are questionable, but results.
She was blazing because she was so self-absorbed. I mean, yes, I understand. I understand that she's a really powerful, strong character, and frankly, Vivien Leigh did a great job. I thought that she was fantastic. It was fantastic.
Oh my God! I mean, I was offended too when Davey said that, because I think didn't we say top 5 best actress winners of all time? Didn't we have her in there? I think we did.
Possible. Because I really do.
It's easily one of the best performances of all time. And
yes, everybody did it. I don't have the way they portray any sense of slavery is ridiculous. The characters in general, I think, were done well, but it's like everybody's kind of awful, and it's just the way that they celebrate their awfulness, which is really...
And by awful, he doesn't mean performances. He's talking about the characters themselves.
Yeah, the characters themselves, exactly. The way that the movie tends to celebrate these characters is, to me, concerning, and also it's conflicting for us. I think now, if you're watching it now, it's a hard thing to kind of get past. So it's like you had
except for 1939, I thought it was actually a compelling sort of three-dimensionality that was unusual for the time.
I guess. I mean, ultimately it's just a soap opera. I mean, ultimately it's really just about this woman's self-absorption and her crazy weirdness. I mean, it's a weird movie, man. It's a very weird movie. Regardless, Nashville's going to win for me.
Okay, so the audience also voted, and this was another unanimous vote. So let's see who the winner is.
Yeah, people are weird. People are weird.
Audience, I was surprised by this one. I had a feeling Gone with the Wind was going to go down, and Gone with the Wind will eventually go down, I imagine, for all the reasons that you mentioned. But it defeated Nashville. There was a certain, I think the Gone with the Wind screening was an actual Thanksgiving screening we had in 2014. So it had just made that 12-month thing when we screened this on November 7th of 2015.
Was it actually on Thanksgiving?
What's that?
You actually did it on Thanksgiving?
Yeah, there was a few of us that were still in town, and so I had people over. Because in 2014, it was celebrating its 75th anniversary as well.
Okay.
So I had a special screening of it, on that day.
They're both really wonderful, weird tellings of America in a lot of ways. And it's kind of funny that we paired them together in this viewing, because in a lot of ways they really fit together. Gone with the Wind could be, it is almost at this point unintentionally satirical. Nashville is obviously intentionally satirical. It kind of paired well, especially right now for us in America right now. It was very telling to watch this kind of stuff again. So I kind of appreciated being able to do that.
Okay, cool. All right, so I'm responding to some texts. So I'll get back to you guys later.
Hey, Joe,
somebody's asked me what time the show is, so.
It's now. It's now, people. Keep watching.
Any minute.
David Joe, wait, let's go back.
I'm live texting you.
David Joe, did not the fall of Atlanta seem really cool?
Yeah, sure.
All right, fine.
There's so many great shots. There's so many great shots that are 20 years ahead of their time.
I mean, there's so many great things that they do, just in general, in that movie that are, from a technical standpoint, that are really amazing.
So, all right, let's move on.
Okay.
Shall we? We've been consistently ending around the same time. So we'll have to take time away from the sound off in some way, shape, or form. So our next, I'm not on screen. There we go. Our next classic is our second film of 3 from the same director that we did. It's our second. Our second film in 3 weeks, in 3 shows from the same director. That's what I'm saying. So the director we did a classic of last time, we're revisiting him again in our next classic, and that's coming up Tuesday, December 6th. That'll be at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Next up is the Sound Off. I don't know exactly what we're going to do. It's our freeform segment. We were planning to do a second run. We had to answer a Twitter question. Davey's supposed to have a diatribe, and I was supposed to have a top 5 fantasy films of all time. I think the top 5 will at least definitely happen. The rest of it is up for grabs, and we'll discuss that momentarily. So let's end this broadcast, and we'll see you for the freeform segment momentarily. Say bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Cute.